Welcome to Psalms from the Couch. Today we're sitting with Psalm 14, a psalm that feels startlingly current, even though it was written thousands of years ago. It speaks into moments when belief seems optional, when self-reliance is celebrated, and when the world feels untethered from anything solid. It is a psalm about what happens when we forget God, and what happens because God doesn't forget us. Let's read Psalm 14 together. To the choir master of David. The fool says in his heart, there is no God. They are corrupt, they do abominable deeds. There is none who does good. The Lord looks down from heaven on the children of man to see if there are any who would understand, who seek after God. They have all turned aside, together they have become corrupt. There is none who does good, not even one. Have they no knowledge, all the evildoers who eat up my people as they eat bread and do not call upon the Lord? There they are in great terror, for God is with the generation of the righteous. You would shame the plans of the poor, but the Lord is his refuge. Oh, that salvation for Israel would come out of Zion. When the Lord restores the fortunes of his people, let Jacob rejoice, let Israel be glad. Psalm 14 opens with a stark diagnosis. The fool says in his heart there is no God. This fool is not someone lacking intelligence. It is someone choosing to live as though God does not matter, does not see, or does not speak into their lives. To say there is no God is less a philosophical statement and more a lived posture, a choice to live as though God is irrelevant. From that posture flows corruption and moral decay. When God is removed from the center, disorder follows. It is possible to believe in God with a mind while denying him with a heart. David is describing a kind of moral and spiritual drift, a life built without reference to God. He continues, they are corrupt, they do abominable deeds. The point is not that humanity is incapable of good, but that without God our desires bend inward. What we justify, tolerate, or excuse slowly shapes us. David is not making a political point or a cultural critique. He is making a human one. When we push God to the edges, our hearts do not naturally move towards righteousness. They move towards self. Then David shifts the scene. He pictures the Lord looking down from heaven, searching for anyone who understands, anyone who seeks him. It is a tender image, God leaning over creation, not looking for perfection, but for hearts that are open. And what he finds is heartbreaking, a widespread turning away. Psalm 53, which echoes this passage, reminds us God searches not to condemn, but to redeem. David says that all have turned aside, all have become corrupt. This is not David being cynical, this is realism. The New Testament later quotes this in Romans 3, describing the universal need for grace. Psalm 14 exposes the truth that brokenness touches every life, every heart, every generation. It confronts us with a sobering reality. Left to ourselves, none of us naturally pursue God. In verse 4, the psalm turns its attention to those who exploit others. The wicked consume God's people without thought, living as though God neither sees nor responds. Evil here is casual, habitual, unrepentant, a way of life that forgets God entirely. David then shifts from the condition of humanity to the character of God. The Lord is with the generation of the righteous. Even in this bleak assessment of a world where many forget God, David affirms a deeper reality. God is present with the righteous, with those who seek him. He is not distant, he is not indifferent, he is not passive. Though the wicked mock and oppress, fear eventually overtakes them because God stands with those they mistreat, with those who place their trust in him. The poor and afflicted are not abandoned. The vulnerable, the overlooked, the ones the world often marginalizes find their refuge in the Lord himself. David says the wicked shame the plans of the poor, but the Lord is his refuge. What society dismisses, God defends. What others exploit, God shelters. The God of Scripture consistently bends his ear towards the vulnerable. This psalm ends with a longing prayer. Oh, that salvation for Israel would come out of Zion. It is a cry for rescue, renewal, for God to break into a weary world with his restoring power. David says, when the Lord restores the fortunes of his people, let Jacob rejoice, let Israel be glad. This is a future-looking hope. David looks ahead to a day of deliverance, as if he sees a time coming when the world's forgetting will be met by God's remembering. And his restoration will rise like a morning light. A restoration that brings joy to God's people and renewal to the nation. Psalm 14 exposes both the ache and the hope of the human condition. It names the darkness honestly, but it refuses to end there. God's rescue is coming, and when it does, joy will follow. Psalm 14 invites us to consider the quiet ways we drift from God, not through rebellion, but through forgetfulness. It reminds us that without him, our hearts curve inward and our wisdom becomes fragile. But it also reassures us that God has not forgotten us. He sees the poor. He guards the righteous. He searches for hearts turned towards him, not to judge them, but to draw them near. This psalm gently calls us back to the God who restores, who rescues, and who remembers us even when we are tempted to forget him. Thank you for settling into the couch with me as we turn to the psalm. Keep leaning into the word that steadies your steps.